We normally begin simulcasting the syndicated radio show at prisonplanet.tv in a visual format, TV format, in the last 2 hours. But more and more we end up doing 3-4 hours of the show, and we've just gone live at prisonplanet.tv for all the members that watch there. And then, of course, it's posted as an archive at the end of the show each day. And then folks rip it to the four winds all over the internet with millions and millions of views every week. Very, very effective. That's why they're shutting down. Google Videos announced they're totally shutting down. YouTube is going from a user format to a format that is corporate. And this is all being announced. And I keep telling people, and they go, oh, they're not getting rid of Google Video. They're not going to start restricting YouTube. Yeah, they are. And so we better start using these sub-sites and make them the biggest sites out there. Because YouTube is a thing of the past. While it's still big and somewhat still open, we've got to use it because that's where the people are. It's bigger than all the other big video sites combined. Going to Joyce Riley, Genesis talk show host, and coming up in about 10-15 minutes, we're going to play this clip at the 8 after. So I guess it's in 12 minutes. Joyce Riley continuing. So this lady had a note paid in full, but they don't care. They just sold the mortgage to another company that then claimed you own money. And I've seen so many mainstream news articles where they admit these fraudulent companies will just take people's houses that have already paid many, many times, just outright fraud, and then they even lose in court cases and just pay the multi-million-dollar fines, but that they'll steal billions and then pay millions. So you're saying in this case, you were already aware of this case then, that this was clearly fraud. So the police came in there in Missouri, continue from there.
I don't know her situation in paying. I do know that when Wachovia took over the mortgage, they then said they were not going to honor the previous mortgage company of saying that the note had been paid in full. So since Wachovia was not on the lien, did not have an equity interest, that's when she went to the judge. And she said, you don't have jurisdiction, you can't take this house because Wachovia has no room to do this. And that is what began to take place, was the fight with the sheriff and with the county to try and take her home. So Dawn Welch then prepared herself for this and decided that she had to make a stand. And it's time that people start making a stand and not just giving up, because it's so easy to give up or renegotiate or whatever, and she didn't feel that that was the situation here. She has lost her job. She has no money. Evidently, they were not willing to work with her, but I don't know that to be a fact. So I'm just simply saying.
Yeah, you're working with somebody that was working with her, and you had her on today, and then you had to go off air because the show was over. We have this audio coming up. But Joyce, in the rest of this segment, the next segment, before we get to this audio here on the show for people, what you ended the last segment with is key. The number of homeless has doubled. They're now arresting homeless, making them live in shelters, charging them rent, saying they've got to work to pay that rent. We're talking about slave labor and the poorhouse, the debtor's prison being reinstituted here. And as the economy continues to be imploded by design, we have the IMF, World Bank, Bilderberg Group documents. They are engineering this by design, Joyce. A lot of arrogant people out there that don't care about this lady need to understand they're next.
That's right. Just like Gary Brownfield was saying, we were talking about this as being part of the plan to get private property. There is a desire and a goal to get private property. I don't care for what reason they use. Well, in this case, Dawn was standing tall. And I think when people hear this absolutely chilling break-in at her house that was live on the air this morning, or that was live with us this morning at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, people need to get that clip from Genesis. It's on the front page of Genesis now. It's posted there. People need to get that and download it, send it out to all their email, and get people aware of this. Because this is where we've come to, where innocent people who are doing nothing, who are not given trillions of dollars to bail them out, are now having to pay the price. And she paid the price dearly. Now, as we said, she had
Joyce, stay there. Got a break. Back
from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right. I know I said wide open phones today and no guests, but news develops here. So your calls are coming up at the bottom of the hour throughout the rest of the show. I will do an analysis of why is Obama going to release new torture, as they call them, abuse photos. We'll be breaking that down. Latest developments on the economy, a bunch of police state news. They've introduced bills to arrest you under federal felonies if someone says your email site or your news story hurt their feelings. You can't make this up. It actually says it. We've been talking about that since last week, but it's racing through the House now. Other hate crimes bills restrict free speech, and a violent extremist act that says that the Attorney General thinks you might be violent or a terrorist someday. That's what Rahm Emanuel said in the speech. We're going to play it later. But now they've got a law they're trying to pass where you can't then own a gun. The right-wingers, returning veterans, the American people. I mean, this is high treason. It's actually happening. That is coming up after we take a bunch of your phone calls. Joyce Riley, talk show host here on the Genesis Network from 7 in the morning to 10, right before Derry Brownfield. They had this lady on who said that neighbors were told the police were coming that day to evict her, even though she had the letter and the court case, note paid in full. They'd sold it to another company, Wachovia. They're saying, no, we're not honoring that. We're taking it. I have experienced this where they sold my mortgage 3 or 4 times and then just took the escrow money and said I hadn't paid it and we're going to take my house. And they were suing me to take it. And I had to go prove all this. I have a little 4 acres and it turned out we did pay it on some land out by Johnson City. And I just got a big bill and they're saying they're taking it. I mean, folks, this is happening to everybody and I got to go fight that or they'll take it. Even though we have the record, we sent them the check. And this is how they operate. Now, Joyce, just during the break, got some new information. So for stations that just joined us, Joyce, and quite a few just joined us, recap what's happened in Missouri, the lady's name, and the new developments, and then we'll play this audio that was recorded after your show ended.
Dawn Welch has been a listener to Genesis Network for 5 years. And she's very well aware of what her rights are. So when this first mortgage company, when she was smart enough to write to the mortgage company and ask them if they still owned the note and if her mortgage was paid in full, they sent her back in writing, yes, your mortgage is paid in full. Well, the mortgage had been sold to Wachovia. Wachovia then enters in, though their name is not on the lien and they have no equity interest in her home, they went to the judge and, of course, the sheriff and told them to go ahead and take the house. Well, she went through the whole proceedings, all the time standing up for herself and challenging them every step of the way. She put notices on her front and back door. She put up no trespassing signs. She said, this is my property, and I will not voluntarily give it up. So as a result of that, over the last few months, we've known that there were some problems there and that the police were going to come. They sent one note to her saying that we will come within 5 days. She put a note up saying, I will sue you as a private individual, Mr. Sheriff, if you do this. Well, they did come today. And when they came to her home at about, now we had her on the air at 8 o'clock Central, and they came to her house. At about 8:45, they started gathering around with the ambulance, the Humvee, and all the vehicles. Started gathering away from her home. Now, her home is right next to the fairgrounds there in Hillsboro, Missouri. So they gathered all around there, kind of like they did with Waco. So we got really concerned. We're afraid of what was going to happen to her. And at about 10 o'clock, we went off the air. And we were off the air and unable to keep contact with the listeners, which is why I'm so appreciative that you were willing to put this on, because these people have been hanging, not knowing what happened. Well, we taped from 10 a.m. on, because John was able to get it connected up there at Genesis and help us out with Ted's involvement there. And what we did was we continued to tape this in an ongoing fashion so that we could hear her and had her on the phone the whole time. At approximately 10:25, they then began to come to her door to break it down. With the battering ram, they came to her door, started screaming for her to come outside. She refused to do so. They knew she was not a person who was going to harm them, and so they weren't even showing any weapons at the time. But she was unfortunately the victim of them breaking down her door. And what you're going to hear is the sound this morning at 10:30 Central Time when they broke down her door. Then after that, I'll give you the update of what I just learned has happened to her since that time. But this is so chilling. I want everybody to take this off of InfoWars and get it onto your email. Send it out and let people hear what it's like for a 54-year-old grandmother who's trying to save her home for her children and her grandchildren.